Nashville Predators pick up a big 5-1 win at home over the Tampa Bay Lightning, and one specific area of the game proved to be the difference. Plus, the Austin Watson slap shot at the end of the game. Dirty play or something blown out of proportion? Let's talk about it today on the Locked On Predators podcast.
Your Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making the Locked On Predators podcast your first listen of the day, every single day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, want to start out with a special hello to our loyal Locked On Pred heads out there, the everydayers who tune into every single show. We love you guys and we appreciate the support you give us week in and week out. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer at Penalty Box Radio, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer at the Hockey News.
All right. We get a big win, Ann.
Big win. We were talking ahead of the show. If somebody had recapped this game very quickly and said, hey, Tampa Bay and Nashville played each other last night. One team went 0 for 4 on the power play. One team went 2 for 3 on the power play. Who won? 9 times out of 10, people are going to go, ooh, Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
But yet, my friends, not last night.
Yeah, you're like, oh yeah, that's Tampa won clearly, right?
Right.
Like, dominated possession, all this.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it was a very Tampa-esque win for the Nashville Predators. It felt like, and yeah, it was. As we talked before the game, goaltending from people not named Andrei Vasilevsky has been an issue this year for Tampa Bay, and I think you might have seen a little bit last night. Yeah. But still, a win is a win if you're the Nashville Predators, and you get a big win over a team who has arguably been the best franchise over the past 5, 6, 7 years. That's going to do a lot for your team.
Yeah. It is. This is a huge win, and it's over a team that, Ryan McDonagh, and we'll talk about his performance in the game, but Ryan McDonagh's like, look, I haven't beat my former team yet. This is the first time the Nashville Predators have been able to beat the team since Ryan McDonagh joined. So this is one of those kind of measuring stick teams. Andrew Brunette doesn't like to talk about measuring stick games and that kind of thing, but these are the teams you have to beat if you want to be a team that is competitive in the playoffs. So just a good game for the Nashville Predators and getting some good vibes off this game. I think it's a good confidence game for the Predators.
Yeah, vibes is a key word there, and it might be a good one word. Let's recap the game first. The Nashville Predators went down early in the game 1-0, and then the floodgates opened. Juuse Saros scored in the end of the first period on the power play. Then we had a goal from Philip Forsberg. Then we had a goal from Ryan McDonagh. Both of those just 2 minutes apart early in the second. In the third, Roman Josi extended the lead to make it 4-1. And then Yakov Trenin, you would look at the time of that goal with about 8 minutes left in the game and think, oh, it's just another goal. It was an empty net goal with about 8 minutes left in the game. But that was the final score. Nashville Predators win 5-1 over the Tampa Bay Lightning. An offensive explosion in the later part of the game. Ann, what is your one word to describe the game?
All right. One of these games, I'm going to use a non-food related one word. I commit to doing that.
Okay.
But not today, because my one word is Ready Whip. And one of my kids' favorite things about Thanksgiving and Christmas was we always have pumpkin pie. And of course, you have to have Ready Whip with pumpkin pie. But my kids love it because it's one of the times where I'm very loosey-goosey about like, hey, whatever, eat whatever you want. So when they were kids, they would open up the fridge, take out the Ready Whip, and they would say, whip me. And that meant they would open their mouth and I would just squirt Ready Whip in. But it got to the point where the challenge was, how much Ready Whip can you stack before it falls over? And they wanted as much of that Ready Whip in their mouth as possible. And that's what this game felt like. It was just like you said, pouring it on. Nashville scored 5 unanswered goals, and you hit a point in this game offensively for Nashville where it just felt like they were continuing to pour on the ready whip. Like it just was going to keep stacking up and stacking up. Tampa Bay needed that game to end at 60 minutes because Nashville was just finding a way at 5-on-5 and on the power play to continue to generate offense. So for me, this really felt like one of those ready whip games. Like, it's going to be great, but it just keeps coming and keeps coming and keeps coming.
Yeah. Are you like the Thanksgiving family that does the like say when? Like one person is control of the ready whip can, and then they go from like pumpkin pie slice to pumpkin pie slice. And it's like, okay, say when.
Say when.
It's always a game to see who can have like the highest stack.
100%. There is no wrong ratio between ready whip and pumpkin pie. You can't over ready whip a slice basically of any pie, but especially pumpkin pie. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I don't always necessarily listen to the whens. It's when I decide it's done.
Yeah. Yeah. I met somebody who is a big Cool Whip on pie person, or Cool Whip on pumpkin pie. And it doesn't, for some reason, it doesn't hit the same.
It does. It's part of it is the aesthetics.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to make Cool Whip look pretty, no matter what that little lid looks like.
I'm with Cool Whip everywhere else. I'm with Cool Whip with cocoa. I'm Cool Whip when like parfaits. I'm Cool Whip on other types of pie. But it feels like pumpkin pie. It's got to be the ready whip.
It's got to be ready whip, 100%.
Anyway, stay tuned for more whipped cream takes.
Holiday recipes.
In this episode. Yeah. We are getting Ready Whip in as a sponsor pretty soon, apparently. Hey, let's put that out there. My one word for this game, Anne, is ceramics. Now, I don't know if you've ever been to a ceramics studio, but it's a lot of work.
Yes.
And you can't really focus on the end product, or else you'll screw up everything that you've worked on. So it's like a process. You have to take the big block of clay. You have to like wet it a certain way. You have to like plop it down on your little circle thing, whatever that's called.
Yeah, throwing wheel. Yeah.
Throwing wheel. Thank you. And then, you kind of have to like, first you have to like mold it, like shape it. And then you have to kind of work on making a cylinder and get the right thickness. And then once you get the right thickness, then you can shape it into like a bigger bowl or a mug or whatever you want to do with it. Then when that's shaped, then you can shape it how you want, and then you can do a texture. Basically, like this long list of steps you need to follow for it to kind of work out the way you want it to. You can't get caught looking ahead, or if you try to, jump to the end game early, you're going to screw up. That's what this game felt like, because I think a lot of people will look and it's like, oh, 5-1 win, like Predators steamrolled Tampa Bay. And really, they didn't. Like, if you took the scoreboard away, this was kind of a tough battle from start to finish. Juuse Saros, his best game by far, because he faced a lot of pressure from that Tampa Bay offense. This is a vintage Juuse Saros game. And it was like, pressure, Tampa Bay. And then it was like, okay, Nashville got their chances. And then, look, Nashville got a goal and it's tied. And then pressure, Tampa Bay. And Juuse Saros did his job. And the defense did its job. And then it goes to the other end of the ice. And now Nashville has pressure. And, look, we scored again. It's 2-1. And it was just kind of that cycle, where it was just like, Tampa Bay would have pressure and Nashville would need to do what they needed to do on their end. Then came a power play and they would capitalize on the power play. Then came a penalty kill and they would keep things off the board. And, it's not like they went up 3-1. It's like, okay, we're going to play defense now. We're going to hold the scoreboard. It's just they kind of kept doing what you needed to do at each phase of the game. They took care of what was in front of them, just like you would with ceramics. Because if in ceramics, you're like, all right, I shape this clay a little bit, I'm making my bowl, and you start pulling it up in any way, you're going to get like something that looks like me doing something from Mystery Baking Challenge or something like that, just a monstrosity.
Yes.
No, you had to kind of just do the steps and focus. Okay, what's next? What's the next thing we need to do? The Predators did that last night. They took care of the tasks that were in front of them step by step. And because of that, that's why they ran up the score to 5-1, because they kept taking care of each aspect of the game that was in front of them, executing and excelling.
I would totally agree with that. And I think you bring up a really important point about this game, because you look at the score and you automatically think Nashville ran away with it. And that wasn't the actual game that was played. I think you bring up such an important point. This wasn't a blowout where Tampa Bay just didn't show up. Now, I will say that I do think Tampa Bay looked a little fatigued, especially at the end of the game. But that was part of Nashville's game plan. Ryan O'Reilly had talked after morning skate, and he said, look, we know this is their second game of a back-to-back. So we know we have to run them as ragged as we can to start with, so that by the end of the game, they're exhausted. But this was not a game where Tampa Bay didn't show up. Tampa Bay had some great chances. They had 33 shots on goal. They had 4 power play opportunities. This was not a runaway game. This was back and forth. And I think you hit the nail on the head when what matters in this game is that Nashville stayed where their skates were. They played the game as it was, right in that moment, right in front of them, and they executed well in those little pockets of time. And then the goals started to come for them. So yeah, it was an interesting game. Not at all the game you would think when you hear Tampa Bay and Nashville played and one team won 5-1.
Yeah, Tampa Bay was exhausted at the end of the game, except for all the strength they could muster into one final shot with 3 seconds left on the clock. Yeah, we'll talk about that in 1 second. Don't worry. We will get to Austin Watson, as well as another key part of this game that played a big role in the Predators game last night, and more observations from the Predators' big 5-1 win. All of that coming up in just 1 second. But first, I want to mention today's episode brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy to championship winning teams, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive in the garage. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and much, much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP of your garage and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, Ann, we kind of hinted at it when we were doing the recaps in one word, but a big part of this game last night was special teams. We talked about Nashville, kind of that being an area in which we really would like to see improvement in the second half of the year.
Really?
Last year, Nashville went 2 for 3 on the power play, which is pretty good against a very solid Tampa Bay team.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing with that Tampa offense, one of the top offensive teams in the entire NHL, 0 for 4. They went on the power play. So the Nashville Predators penalty kill, doing so much last night, and Juuse Saros. And then the power play stepping up and getting 2 timely goals as well. This was about as good of a special teams performance, and that I can remember from the Nashville Predators in such a long time.
100%. And special teams really was sort of the key of the game. Of course, Nashville did get 3 5-on-5 goals. One of them was an empty net goal, so it was like 6-on-5, but you know what I'm saying? Like, they got some even strength goals. But this game came down to special teams, and it was something that Andrew Brunette and the team knew going into this game. Like, we know we're facing the second best power play right now in the league. One of the best power plays, if you look at them, this power play unit, their top unit over the last couple of seasons, could be one of the best power play units in years in the NHL. I mean, really one of the top units. So you knew going in, special teams was going to be a part of this. Andrew Brunette talked about, like, we've got to stay out of the box. Well, plan A did not work. The Predators did end up in the box, and it was for penalties that you kind of grind your teeth about, like high sticking penalties, a very soft, ready whip soft trip call on Roman Josi. I mean, how that was a trip and not an embellishment, this theater major doesn't know. But anyway, so there were penalties that weren't penalties trying to prevent a goal. They were just kind of those dumb penalties that you get frustrated about. So the Predators had to go to plan B, which was effectively kill off the penalties. And Tampa Bay Lightning power plays feel like dog years.
Yeah.
But Juuse Saros, incredible. Like, I almost had to not look at Fang Vision because I'm like, I don't even want to see how much time they have left on this power play. But the penalty kill, which, we've talked about, it's been one of the worst in the league so far this season, really effective and under duress, because it wasn't that Tampa Bay had a lot of trouble setting up. And, they had the one penalty kill where, bless, Ryan McDonagh's stick broke. Colton Sissons hands off his stick to Ryan McDonagh. They're kind of trapped in the zone. And, Colton Sissons, the puck ends up loose at his feet. He kicks it to McDonagh, who clears it from the zone with Sissons' stick, and they can finally get a change. Like, they just did what they had to do for 2 minutes / 18 dog years. Actually, it would be 14 dog years. But the penalty kill was huge in this game.
Yeah, it seems like the clock always stops when the other team is on the penalty.
Yes.
Maybe it's just because it's like, we got 2 minutes, and then it'll fly by. But when you're like kind of holding the edge of your seat, that's when the butt cheeks clench just a little bit. Of course, the you mentioned penalty kill was a big part of the game last night. Andrew Brunette had a lot of kudos for the penalty killing unit. Let's hear what he had to say after the game.
Yeah, really happy for the penalty kill. I think to step up the way they did against arguably one of the greatest power plays of all time. Obviously, Juuse has played a big part in that, but those were big kills. Squashed any momentum we might have lost, and our power play was opportunistic and a couple big goals.
Concerned you might be tempting fate a little bit though with poor power plays, poor Lightning power plays.
Yeah, I think we were a little sloppy with our sticks. It was kind of a point of emphasis, but I didn't particularly love the penalties. I think they were kind of penalties that really didn't have a factor in the game, kind of away from the puck or those kind of things. A little sloppy with their sticks, a little sloppy with their puck early. But I thought overall, once we got to our game, once we stopped giving up free offense, I thought we played pretty solid. And, Juuse was outstanding.
As he calls it, free offense. And I feel like that's kind of, as you mentioned earlier, kind of the one thing the Predators should clean up is just some of those reckless penalties. I don't need to remind anybody listening that was a big thing from, the last 2-3 years, where it just seems like the Predators kept shooting themselves in the foot. So, maybe that's the one cynical way of looking at this game last night, Anne.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you got to love that the penalty kill did come to play.
And the way that the penalty kill, not only were they effective, but the way that they were able to hold them off, the way that Juuse Saros was able to play in net, on that penalty kill really gave Nashville a lot of confidence and momentum. And those 4 penalties really could have swung the game another way momentum wise. And I think it was so important what they did, not only to keep Tampa Bay off the board, but just to kind of keep the momentum of the game in Nashville's favor, because, they didn't have to manage huge swings. There was one Tampa Bay goal early, and then it was really Nashville offensively from there on out because of the penalty kill. So it was really huge.
Yeah, for sure. Let's just go ahead and jump into the big moment at the end of the game. Austin Watson, with time winding down, massive windup, massive slap shot from his own blue line, winds up nailing Jeremy Lauzon straight in the leg. Not sure what the situation with Lauzon in, but he was visibly hurt, visibly pissed, caused a big kerfuffle at the end of the game. Was this a big deal, or is it getting maybe blown up a little more than it needs to be? Let's tackle that topic next.
First, want to let you know today's episode's brought to you by Juuse Medical. Look, I know we come together to talk about sports to escape from some of the other crazy things that happen in the world around us, but let's talk for a minute about being prepared for that real life. According to the FDA, pharmacies are running low on antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. That can be a little bit scary. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than if my kids got sick while there was a supply chain issue that kept them from the important medications that they need. Thankfully, I know we'll be okay because of Juuse Medical. The Juuse case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics that treat a long list of bacterial illnesses such as UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infection, among other things, the things that happen to all of us at any point over the flu season. So go and visit juicemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It has never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to juicemedical.com, that's JASE medical.com, and use offer code locked on to get $20 off your order.
All right, Ann, let's talk about what has become the big talker around the NHL from this game last night. And that is the situation at the end of the game with Austin Watson. Again, what happened was that the Predators were clearly winning 5-1 at that point. Tampa Bay got the puck out of the zone. Austin Watson had the puck. 3 seconds left on the clock, something like that. Winds up for that, sort of, I'm frustrated, here's a big slap shot at the end of the ice kind of thing. Winds up shooting it right at Jeremy Lauzon, who goes down holding his leg, was visibly kind of shaken at the end of the game, also visibly mad. Of course, you had Yakov Trenin and others kind of go over to Watson, start a little kerfuffle at the end of the game. Watson, I think, got a misconduct for the play. Reports from Alex Doherty is that Austin Watson tried. It wasn't clear if he actually got to talk to Lauzon, but either tried to or went to apologize to Lauzon. So clearly not an intentional thing. But what do you make of, I guess, the whole situation here, Anne?
I would agree that I don't think that this was something intentional. I don't think at all that Austin Watson was trying to drill Jeremy Lauzon. I do think it was a frustration move, but I think, you know what? You got to be smarter than that. And, Austin Watson, I think part of the outrage in the NHL is tied a little bit to reputation. I think if this was maybe somebody else, it might be a little bit easier for people from the outside to dismiss it as like, hey, that was really just a kind of a dumb play. So I think that plays into part of it, but you just can't do that kind of stuff at the end of the game. It serves nothing except to vent your anger, and we're grown-ups. We have to find ways to do that are productive and appropriate. Even if he was winding up to try to get one past Juuse Saros, it was going to be 5-2. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's really no reason except to express your frustration to go ahead and do that. I don't think Watson was looking. I don't think he saw Lauzon. But this is one of those things where you're like, you got to be smarter than that. Like, you've got to make a better decision with your frustration at that point in the game. And look, this is a whole thing for the Nashville Predators if Jeremy Lauzon is injured. This is an actual problem, not just because you're losing a defenseman, but we also don't have Alexander Carrier. I think we can all say in the nicest terms possible, Luke Schenn is not up to speed yet. I think, we're dealing with who knows what is happening with Tyson Barrie right now. He was a healthy scratch last night. A defenseman is not disposable at this point for the Nashville Predators. So dumb decision, super unfortunate results. And we're going to have to wait and see what is the kind of longer term consequence for something like this. I appreciate that Watson tried to apologize. It shows that he knows hey, that was just stupid. But you just don't need that stuff.
Yeah.
Don't eat it.
And I've seen a lot of people point out, it's like, you see this all the time.
Yeah.
And it's probably something you don't think about because the puck just either goes on net and the goalie just kind of,
Yeah.
makes a little quick save and, the clock's still running and just kind of runs out the clock, or it just goes 20 feet wide of the net and no one
No.
cares. And I think
Right.
it's one of those things where it's like you don't realize how reckless it is until something like this happens.
Right.
And it's maybe one of those because I've seen a lot of people be like, this is, that big deal. But it's still a reckless play. And I think maybe this is a situation. I mean, it's the same reason that, defenders go over and rough up a guy who took a shot after the whistle, like
Right.
on the goalie, because it's just like you never know what could happen. It's just like a needless shot after a whistle, maybe hits the goalie wrong and injures him, or hits a defender in the face or something like that. And it's like, oh, that was a totally needless shot that shouldn't have happened, that wound up hurting somebody or wound up, hurting one of our players. And that's why all those scrums happen,
Yes.
to keep that from happening again. So, in this situation, when you wind up as hard as you can and take a slap shot, and we know Austin Watson, like we know he can shoot that puck pretty hard. We've seen him do it here in Nashville. I think it's just one of those things where you don't really think about it until something like this happens. And maybe like, again, I hesitate to say the word dirty because
I don't think it was
it's
dirty.
not like the Daniel Alfredson jawing with, Scott Niedermayer all game. And then just with, 1 second left, just fires a slap shot directly at him.
Right.
It's not like that
No.
situation, but I think it's just like a reckless play.
I would agree with you. And it's one of those things where you wonder if, okay, everybody in the NHL is seeing this. Everybody in the NHL this morning is talking about this. I wonder if this is going to be something that sticks in people's minds. It's like, hey, you know what? We got to stop doing this because, the odds are nothing bad is going to happen, but it could. Kind of like warming up without your helmet, Colton Sissons, Ryan O'Reilly, and Tyson Berry.
Well,
putting it out there.
I don't think the Preds care much about Tyson Berry's well-being at this point.
I know, but it stresses me out, man.
I'm just kidding.
Me out.
They probably do. Yeah. So I don't
think it was dirty.
Yeah,
Dumb.
I think a lot of people are saying, is the NHL going to do something more with this? I don't think so.
No, not if they didn't do anything on the Alexander Carrier hit.
Yeah, that's another topic for another day.
Mm-hmm.
And what else from this, real quick, what else from this game stood out to you last night?
I know that it sounds like a broken record and that I am obsessing about this, and I'm really not, but I have to tell you, one of the things that stood out to me again was Spencer Stastny.
Yes.
Not just speed, but speed, because when you're playing the Tampa Bay Lightning, you're going to need fast defensemen. You're going to need people to be able to get back fast, but also he is anticipating plays. He's breaking up cross ice passes. You just don't look on the ice and say, hey, there's a guy who just came up from the AHL playing for the Nashville Predators. You just don't. And I think to myself, I don't know how the defense situation is going to shake out for the Predators here or in the AHL. There's a lot of defensemen, but I just don't know that Spencer Stastny needs to go back to Milwaukee, y'all.
It feels like we've seen the last of Spencer Stastny in a Milwaukee Admirals uniform.
Yeah. Yeah, I just feel like he's ready for this game. He's ready for the NHL game. So I really loved that. How about you? What else kind of jumped out?
Speaking of defensemen, I'm just gonna throw it out there, Ann, because we've given him a hard time. Luke Schen's best game?
I would say. Yeah, I would agree.
Safe to say. Yeah. Yep. I mean, it was one of those things where, we go to the Chicago game and he didn't really do anything wrong, like anything glaringly wrong. And that was an improvement from some of his earlier games. And then we went to last night and, he went from didn't really do anything wrong to, okay, he's actually kind of made some solid plays in his own end.
Yeah.
And I think that is, maybe worth a shout out because it seems like the Preds are going to want to go back to a more traditional 12 forward 60 lineup. And so that means Luke Schenn is going to have more responsibility. And I think at least last game and last night, he looked noticeably better, and that he looked noticeably better from the Blackhawks game, which was noticeably better from the game before. So yeah, maybe some positivity there that things are moving in the right direction.
Yeah, making some improvements, getting back up to game speed. Big weekend for the Predators. They've got back-to-back again this weekend, Nick. Toronto and Montreal, they're on the road. So it's going to be a lively weekend for Nashville.
Yeah, get your poutine, folks. We're going north of the border. Of course, we will have recap from those games Monday on the Locked On Predators podcast. So be sure you stay tuned for that. And where can people find your work?
You can find my work online at InsideThePreds.com. You can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice.
You can find me at _NS Morgan on social media, or read my work at penaltyboxradio.com. That's going to do it for us on today's Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Back next week with all new episodes. We'll see you then.